let's talk about efforts to improve Nigeria's economy as it's in top gear by the federal government. The Statistician General of the Federation, Chief Executive National Bureau of Statistics, Mr. Adeyemi Adeniran, yesterday announced improvements to the reporting of the Consumer Price Index, CPI, publishing some new special indices to better inform policymakers. The development came as the Monetary Policy Committee of the Central Bank of Nigeria, Monetary Policy Committee, meets today, the first this year to decide on the direction of the monetary policy as well as review the state of the economy. Expectedly, the current inflationary concerns, high cost of borrowing, and naira stability will dominate the committee's deliberations. Relatedly, Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry, LCCI, attributed the sharp drop in the inflation rate from 34.8% to 24.48% to the rebasing of the CPI rather than any real reduction in prices. LCCI said this in a public statement signed by its Director General, Dr. Chinyere Almona. The Apex Bank had previously raised the benchmark interest rate by a total of 850 basis points under the current leadership in efforts to subdue inflation and stabilize the naira. All right, we started this conversation yesterday. We talked about how this was, we had expected this to happen. And the base year is now 2024, talking about how the numbers have changed and evaluating what this means for the economy. Professor Kila, your thoughts on this story?
Well, the first thing is I was asking myself if you caused it by talking about it yesterday. Maybe you are the one that induced it, or was it the real economy? But I think it's the real economy. It's very easy to see. There's a very easy straw poll to do rather than waiting for the figures, as we said yesterday.
Yeah.
When you look around you, are there more factories? Are there more people getting the job? Are we producing more things? I think it was Rufai who used the expression Broad Street versus Main Street.
Yeah.
Those are very easy things that we can touch on. And I think, and we're going to talk more about it, and I think until we shift a bit away from monetary policies and focus on real economy and perhaps fiscal economy, policies if we want to help things, I think we're just twisting in the wind. It really doesn't. I understand the intention. I understand all the plan of the CBN. But I think somehow, and I'm very convinced of this actually, that we're putting too much burden on the CBN on monetary policy. I would like to see perhaps a quarterly review of action of the Minister of Economy, Planning, Budget Planning, and all our fiscal policies to say, in the next 100 days, this is what we're going to do, and then we'll go back and measure it instead of the monthly thing. Because the rates and the rebasing, all these things, they all sound intangible to the real economy of the country. And I think we need to take that serious. Absolutely.
Thanks. Rufai.
Okay, so a couple of things. We knew it was going to come.
Yeah.
It's been in the works since last year. What he has just also done is to add a couple of new CPI estimates and special indices to, the rebasing system and the ecosystem, which will include the Farm Produce Index, which recorded 10.50% inflation rate, as well as energy, which had 8.9%, other services like 10.4%, goods 10.71%, imported food 11.47%, and all of this as of January. So what is pretty much happening is when you have a rebasing and when you are doing statistical analysis of inflation, it's just about your weighted averages. And these are all the things that fit into general inflation number. And that's why you say we talk about core inflation, urban inflation, that also strip out volatile items and things like that. What has happened here is that they've used a base year as 2024. Why did they use it? Instructive, because 2024 was the year we had a very great level of inflation. In fact, we pray we shall never have the inflation standards of 2024 again, because these were ridiculous standards. In recent memory, years in the early 90s, I think 93 or 94, to had ridiculous numbers of inflation, because I think as at 1993, interest rates on bank loans were notching up to 50%. That's how bad the terrain of things went. And obviously, then Nigeria was a lot of under sanctions and things like that. So it was high inflation environments. But 2024 definitely will make any other preceding year look good. So it's not that the price of things, like Professor Kila said rightly, has reduced in the market. No. Yes, this will do some work as regards optics. It will make us look good. Okay, when you say, okay, headline inflation rate in Nigeria is 24 point something percent, it's not the real tangible rates. It will look good when you're prospecting for investors and all of that. But when the rubber hits the roads, your real economy is dead. Okay, I'll make the argument for you. We have over 200 million population. What's the disposable income of that population? Out of that over 200 million population, close to over 100 million cannot afford $2 per day. So as a manufacturer, I will bring my manufacturing equipment here, spend over $200-300 million or $400 million, and I hope to recoup my money in the next 10 years. When more than half of that population cannot spend $2 per day. And maybe what I'm making is detergents. So I peg my price of detergent, 1 unit of detergent, for instance, at 0.50 cents, or, I mean, that's too much, or less than 0.001 cents. I took that loan out in dollars in the first place. How am I going to recoup my money? It doesn't just make sense. And that's why when you see the big players leaving the economy, it's because of the hazards of the economy. Till today, have you seen any new Omo advertisement on television? Have you seen your Blue Bands of this world? And that's it. All of these are level products. So what can we do? Now we need to bring in FDI into this economy. We also need to now reflect the lives of people by 1, social spendings, healthcare, education. Because if we believe that if government spends heavily on those areas, you can take the burden off people, what they are spending on these areas of the economy. You don't need to spend that heavy amount on education and all of that. Maybe you can add it to food and other disposable materials. So it's a long walk to fixing this economy. And the LCCI was right. Things are not any better, but for optics it's look just like they say unemployment numbers in tandem with FA has gone down. But you know unemployment is still rife in this country.
Well, just before we move on to our next story this morning, I mean, just to bring the points together with regards to the rebasing. We talked about this yesterday, and I'd mentioned the figures as reported by this day newspaper and one of the first, I must say, newspapers to release the details of this story. But I think the importance of this new article is the reaction from stakeholders and analysts. And as has been established, the LCCI has come out to say that let's not be deceived by the numbers. It's good for a clearer, to give clarity to what the numbers are, but it's also important to not see this as a win in terms of, the numbers, there's a drastic reduction in the numbers, and so the economy has bounced back with regards to inflation, or is bouncing back quite rapidly with inflation, but it gives a better and clearer view of how things stand currently. Now, with regards to the MPC meeting taking place today and tomorrow, the conversation is, now that we've seen that inflation rate is not as high as it was, at least last year, can we begin to hold on hikes? So that, because one of the things we've talked about a number of times when hikes have happened is the effect on businesses, the effect on growth of the economy, on spendings, on loans, especially for small businesses. So can we now at least give some breathing room, breathing space now that we see that, okay, things are moving, things are working, even though not yet where we want it to be. I'm absolutely spot on with regards to even looking at the individual items that affect inflation rate. One of it is food inflation. And so when we're looking at making better decisions, or the government using the tools to then make better decisions, it would then see that we need a lot of investment in the agricultural sector. We've talked about this again and again, and we've said that if we're going to really touch those numbers, beyond the hikes in rates, we must also look at investment. And that's why I love what you talk about with fiscal policy, because we see a lot from the monetary side of things, but from the very beginning, we've talked about how there must be a balance and commensurate effort on the fiscal side of things. I know that this administration has tried to put some investments in agriculture with the different programs, but unfortunately, it's not near enough with regards to where we are currently. So let us, I think yesterday you were talking about, or was it the guest that was speaking about what we have currently as output from Nigeria, maximizing that and stopping imports in that area so as to encourage local production. This is also apt for the agricultural sector. What are some of the grains? What are some of the products that we produce here? Can we invest heavily in that and then gradually begin to reduce imports so that we're able to really show production in that way? People need to eat. People need to take transportation. These are areas that have, made a number on inflation numbers. So I think that's what to help us to do. Then the final thing I would say is that it also helps to send a signal, a positive signal to potential investors, local and foreign, to see that, okay, the economy is ripe for investing. Inflation numbers are not as bad as they were last year. So I like that optics because we do need the much needed, as you've talked about, FDI, foreign investment, and this is what this signals to potential investors. I'm hoping that this will attract that much needed investment in many areas. I was reading earlier on about, an attraction for investment in some of our road infrastructure and other areas. And so these are some of the things that investors look at the numbers to see whether or not Nigeria is ripe for investment. And of course, you'd agree with me that based on these numbers, they are. And so hopefully this would encourage them, and also some of the policies that come into place with regards to the fiscal side of things. All right, let's move on to our next story this morning. The news of the passing of elder statesman Chief Edwin Clark hits the nation like a shockwave early on Tuesday, with many prominent Nigerians mourning the Pan-Niger Delta leader and former federal commissioner. Sympathizers, including political leaders, friends and associates, converged on his Asokoro residence in Abuja to commiserate with his family. Arise correspondent Charles Eruka was there.
The mood is somber at the Asokoro, Abuja residence of late Chief Edwin Clark. Family members and close friends wearing sad faces as they receive his political associates and sympathizers who trickle in to convey their condolences. One of the sons of Chief Clark, Ebiekeme, confirms that his father passed away peacefully.
We lost our daddy yesterday after a very brief illness. And he didn't suffer, passed on well, and we're happy for the life he lived, how he touched the lives of Nigerians, what he has done for this country. And we're happy today. We're not just mourning, we're not mourning at all. We're celebrating his life.
Members of Chief Clark's Pan-Niger Delta Forum also arrive at the home of their departed leader, expressing grief over the sad loss.
Over the years, Daddy Clark as a teacher, as headmasters, as commissioner, as federal commissioner, a minister, as a senator, Daddy Clark stood for one thing, that is, everybody should be equal before the law.
Prominent visitors including serving Senator Seriake Dixon, former Senator James Manager, the President General of the Middle Belt Forum, signed the condolence register, even as they share their memories of what Chief Clark stood for.
He was a leader of leaders, a father of fathers. Did his best, lived a great life. You can't possibly ask for more. 97, and strong and active and articulate till the end.
Ike Clark contributed a lot to the development and growth of this country, Nigeria. He was a voice for the voiceless.
Not that this man has disappeared from the scene, but how do we fill the void which he has left behind?
The elder statesman mentored many people, including some family members he raised along with his children.
Pa Clark is an embodiment of history, is an embodiment of national culture, resilience, and total commitment to the development and the existence of Nigeria. For us, I consider myself a child of Pa Clark, and so it's a personal loss to me, beyond the fact that it's a national tragedy.
The former Federal Commissioner for Information was a lot of things to different people, and many here say he'll be remembered not only as a voice of the Niger Delta, but also as a national leader who stood for justice and equity for all Nigerians, especially in his constant pursuit of true federalism and resource control. Charles Eruka, Arise News.
In his tribute, former Commonwealth Secretary-General Chief Emeka Anyaoku described Edwin Clark as a devoted public servant and a steadfast advocate for national unity who championed collaboration among the country's various ethnic nationalities. Anyaoku says, as leader of his people's cultural organization in the Niger Delta, Clark promoted close consultation and solidarity with the leaders of the other similar organizations in the country. According to him, the passing of Chief Edwin Clark points to the end of the old brigade of Nigeria's public servants. Anambra State Governor Chukwuma Soludo has also paid tribute to Clark, calling him a dogged and committed fighter for national unity. He emphasized the role he played in the pursuit of justice, equity, and true federalism. All right, I mean, no surprises there with the accolades, tributes, words used to describe this great icon, as has been described, an Iroko that's truly fallen. The tributes were led by the president of the nation, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, and of course other former leaders, President Olusegun Obasanjo, Muhammadu Buhari, state governors. As we saw there, the home was already besieged with a lot of visitors in honor of this great man who lived, a true national asset.
Okay, I mean, Ayo, what else can we say about Papa Clark? Very warm. He was a constant, regular guest here, where he came to talk about issues. And you know, what's just ringing in my hair, I used to call you my lovely daughter. And, you know, that was the kind of heart he had. I must say, COVID survivor. Yeah. Because it wasn't an easy task for a 90-year-old man. A man is 90 to survive COVID. In fact, he feared that he was going to pass then. But over the years, what you remember people by are their convictions. What were his convictions? A lot of fight for resource control. He felt that the people that produced most resource that helped the nation, oil resource, should get it. A fight for his people. A fight for development of the Niger Delta. Till his last days, I think one of the last interviews he had here, he came to call out a certain person that he felt was corrupt and all of that. And that's what he stood for. Love him or hate him. We are not in this world for everybody to love us. All people cannot love you. But you see, the most important thing in life is, are you respected for what you believe in? And people have a right to disagree with what you believe in. But the question is, are you respected?
Yeah.
And Edwin Clark was respected for his convictions. And in the end, that's what matters the most in life. You respect you have for your convictions, how people can see through that, and the love you have for humanity.
Absolutely, well said. Professor Killer? I know we're out of time.
I know we're out of time. But I think,
for your thoughts on this.
Pap Clark deserves all the legacy and icons and celebration he gets. And it's a lesson to live long, to be relevant, and to be impactful. A lesson for all.
Excellent. Thank you so much.